Shohei won the Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year for the fourth time, breaking a tie with Michael Jordan. He now ties Lance Armstrong, LeBron James, Tiger Woods for most wins among all time among male honorees. He's an absolute legend, an unquestioned superstar, but he certainly has quite the supporting cast of stars around him, Caroline Fenton. And he just got some more. All-star Edwin Díaz added in free agency, adding one more name to the long list. I mean, this one had Mets fans losing their mind, has Dodgers fans absolutely swaggy walking around. This is a contract. It's the largest annual value to a relief pitcher in Major League Baseball history at $23 million per year, $69 million. Nice. Are the Dodgers aggressively spending habits? Are those spending habits actually bad for baseball? What do you think?
I think it'll only be bad for baseball and honestly, at this rate, when it gets to a point where things are just totally and completely uncompetitive, when the Dodgers just totally and completely sleepwalk their way to a World Series. And I know they kind of did that in the NL on their path to the World Series this past season, but watch the Dodgers and Blue Jays series this past year and tell me that was bad for baseball. Tell me those weren't incredibly intriguing and fun games. Tell me when you stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning watching all of the extras and what was that, game 4, game 5, whatever game it was, and tell me that's bad for baseball. So I do think that on this path, we're getting to a point where maybe the Dodgers are just outspending everyone at such a high clip that nobody else can keep up. But until then, I'm here for it. I'm a Cardinals fan. I am born and raised in St. Louis. The Cardinals were my first love. I have Cardinals memorabilia behind me. Okay, part of me should hate that the Dodgers are this dominant, but I just don't, because I think overall Shohei and the World Series and the story of the Dodgers, whether you love them or you hate them, they're a story and an enemy. All of those things are good for the sport of baseball.
This is not some wild moment where the Dodgers outspent the White Sox to steal a superstar. Let's not get it twisted. Some important facts here. Number one, in 2025, the highest payroll, according to Spotrac.com, in all of baseball was the Dodgers at $350 million. The second highest payroll was the Mets at $342 million. $8 million is all that separated the spending last year of the Dodgers and the Mets. If you look at this year's projected spending as of right now, as we're recording this, there's about a $9 million difference between the Dodgers and the Mets. We can't sit here and say, oh my God, how could they turn around and do that? It's amazing. The number one payroll outspent the number two payroll to bring over somebody that fixes their biggest issue. So, I'm sorry if the Dodgers are just doing business better than the rest of you. Let's keep in mind, again, there was not a massive spending difference between the Mets and the Dodgers last year, but there sure as hell was a massive difference between how the two team seasons finished, right? So what the Dodgers did is they went out with one glaring weakness that we all talked about, and they said, you know what? We got the money. We'll spend the money. And that's what every fan base wants every team to do. This isn't a Dodgers problem. This is a White Sox problem. And yes, I'm picking on the lowest payroll in Major League Baseball. But the fact is, you're bringing in cash hand over foot. So go out and spend it. And if you're not willing to spend it and somebody else in your sport is, that's too damn bad. And at the end of the day, for every single person that sits there and says the Dodgers are killing baseball, what happened last year in the World Series? We all flocked to it. We watched it. Why? Because it was the Dodgers, and not just the Dodgers, but the Dodgers with superstar after superstar. When every single at-bat feels like a household name, people flock to watch it. Does it make baseball more boring? I guess if you're a purist, maybe that's your argument, but certainly the ratings don't support that. The absolute meteoric shift in profitability, attendance, and TV ratings overall of baseball that we've talked about, to the point that we've actually had conversations that the NBA needs to learn from Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball has listened to fans and they have fixed their product. That's a real conversation we had on this show a couple of months ago. So now I want to turn around because of one signing and say that the Dodgers are ruining it. The Dodgers aren't doing anything. The Dodgers are simply going out there saying, we got the money, we'll spend the money. And if you want to compete, you can spend the money too. And if you don't want to compete, then that's up to you. And if you don't want to do that, then your fans should stop supporting you until you are forced to spend the money. But again, Caroline, this was not Robin Hood. They did not steal from the poor in this process. There was any of these things didn't happen. They went out. The number one team outbid the number two team in spending and got better. If you don't like it, Mets fans, figure out how to get better results out of the roster that you've spent your wild amounts of cash on.
And when we look back at the World Series from this past year, I feel like there was this impression of this cute, plucky little Blue Jays team. No, the Blue Jays were 7th in spending in Major League Baseball. So we're seeing, the return on your investments. And to your point, good teams are not bad for sports. Bad teams are bad for sports. The A's are bad for baseball. The White Sox are bad for baseball. The Pittsburgh Pirates are bad for baseball because they have ownerships that don't want to spend the money and don't want to invest in order to make those teams competitive against the big bad Dodgers of the world. So I get it. I hear you that every single time the Dodgers will make a transaction and bring in yet another giant onto that roster because their roster is riddled with him. I'm looking around and saying, where is everybody else spending? Why aren't the A's and the Pirates and the White Sox spending? Because when you look at viewership, people want to watch the Dodgers. People want to watch the Yankees. People want to watch the Cubs. That's not just because those are, elite premier franchises in the game of baseball. That's because those are good teams. Nobody wants to watch the A's and nobody wants to watch the White Sox. It's the same thing in football. Sure, everybody's pissed off that the Chiefs are winning everything and are in the Super Bowl every single year. But we just saw a game featuring the Kansas City Chiefs be the most viewed game in the history of the National Football League. You know who's watching the Raiders? Fitz. Literally just Fitz. He's the only person watching Raiders games. So sure, we can be mad all day long that these teams are winning everything and getting all of these players and spending all of this money, but those are the teams that you end up watching. And that's good for the sport when your eyes are on the sport.
I want to see if we can pull a tweet up that they had on the screen a second ago from Yankees analytics nerd. I think it was that it was calling out the Dodgers because this to me is part of the entire problem. Like this narrative that the Dodgers are killing baseball when you've got Yankees. I admire the Dodgers, man. Just spend on all the best players you can get until somebody stops you. Like at this point, look, yes. And guess what? Again, I'll go back to Spot Track. If you look at last year, the Yankees spent $305 million on their payroll. The Dodgers spent $350. The Yankees were the fourth biggest payroll. The Dodgers were the first. So then I went to Forbes because Forbes values these teams every year. The most valuable Major League Baseball team in 2025 was not the Dodgers at $6.8 billion. That was the second most, right? The most valuable team was the Yankees at $8.2 billion. Like, if you are a Yankees fan or a Mets fan and your argument is that the Dodgers are spending baseball into a problem, shut up. Like, just stop crying. At some point, man, if you want to tell me that this is an argument from small market teams that really can't compete, that really want to have, like, if you're Cleveland, if you're Tampa Bay, if you're Miami, I'm looking at teams with lower payrolls, and you're saying, man, we just can't compete. Maybe over time I'll listen to that, but also know your role. Like at some point, you just don't matter as much as the big brands. Like if Miami goes out and they spend, if St. Louis, you're a team you love, if St. Louis goes out and spends, they have a rabid fan base. That's one thing. I'll give them that. But if you start talking about the Angels had Shohei and nobody paid attention, right? The Angels had Shohei and nobody really gave a damn. And I don't think that that's going to change if the Angels suddenly win a World Series. What brings people to the sport are huge brands. And if those huge brands choose to spend more money, I have no problem at all about. In fact, I'm just going to say now, go get Scooble. Go get every single player. Go get every single player you possibly can and just globally dominate the sport. I'm in for all of it, Caroline.
Well, I'll pump the brakes right there. One thing that I think is great about baseball is there is so much parity. Like the Dodgers are the first back-to-back champions in my lifetime. It doesn't happen very often. And I think that's one thing that so many people have been so frustrated with in other sports is these long-term dynasties. So I do think at some point there will be a point where we need to pump the brakes a little bit on the Dodgers, but I'm not there yet.